Okay, welcome everybody to Bloomington-Normal Economic Development Council's first virtual Be-In by the Numbers. This is something that hopefully won't have to do too many times, and we can get back across the street over at ISU sooner than later. Housekeeping items, you can ask a question at any time. We will have the chat feature, but there's also a question box. And so what we'll do with that is you can ask the questions, and when we get towards the end, we'll answer as many questions as possible. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with an email. And also, because we're doing this via Zoom, it's all going to be recorded, and we'll hopefully be posting it to YouTube and available to share. That doesn't mean I want anybody to leave, but I thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, wanted to thank our sponsors. So Illinois State University, Central Illinois Regional Airport, WGLT, Serban, B104, WBNQ, WJBC, The Bull, Cities, Talk FM, and Magic 99.5. I believe most of you have met me before, but just in case, my name is Patrick Hoban. I'm the CEO for the Bloomington-Normal Economic Development Council. I got a bachelor's from Millikan, went through National Development Council's Economic Development Finance Professional Certification, followed that up at the University of Oklahoma, ended up becoming a certified economic developer, and finished up at Notre Dame with a master's in business analytics. And currently I'm trying to talk Frank over at ISU Stevens Center for Economic Development into creating a doctoral in economic development for me so I can add that to this list. All right, today we're going to talk about the road to recovery, beyond COVID. And we've got this broken down into three sections. We've got the overall impact on our economy, how local leaders responded or what our reaction was, and then how we'll adapt and try to conform to the new normal, which is still unknown. So we're first going to, basically you're going to see a fighter theme throughout this talk because that's really what we're in right now. It's a fight for our economy. And we'll start off with the overall impact, taking a look at the impact on our employment, a couple different categories there, the retail sales, and then overall investment in the community. Now, as we've discussed before, employment trends fall under two categories. There's local area unemployment statistics, and there's current employment statistics. Now, both are measured by our Metropolitan Statistical Area, or the MSA, and that does include DeWitt. That is just the way that the census broke it down, and that's how we gather all of our numbers. This figure that we're showing on the screen right now illustrates the inflow and outflow of workers in the Bloomington-Normal MSA. Now, the latest figures are from 2017, and I know that's not as current as we want, but that's the best that we could get for inflow and outflow right now. And it shows that 62% of the people working in Bloomington-Normal live in Bloomington-Normal, while 33% of the employed residents work outside. Now, we use this for illustrative purposes and hopefully to help explain the difference between the local area unemployment statistics and CES. So LAUS measures workers based on where they live, regardless of where they work. Okay, so this number right here, the 57,000, those are the people that live and work in the Bloomington MSA, and the 28,000 are people that live here but work outside. So whenever we're looking at LAUS, that's what this measures. It's not the number of jobs that we have here, but the amount of people that are employed here, regardless of where they work. So last time we had a conversation, I was asked to actually break down how we get the unemployment rate even further. So we're going to take a look at three separate numbers and then combine them for the unemployment rate. So look at our total employed, we'll look at the underemployed to get the labor force, and then we divide the unemployed by the labor force to get the rate. And we do that so that we can, compare ourselves to other communities. Now, as you'll notice, we started to follow the same pattern as last year, until COVID hit in March when it comes to the employment numbers. Now, from February 2020 to March, employment dropped 5,000. So there's a quick 5,000 drop there. And then from March 2020 to April 2020, it dropped 12,000, which was a very large drop. Now, combined year to year, you can see that it was actually 20,000 compared to last year. Now, it's hard to say where we would be at if this would have continued without COVID, but for now, that's where we are at. Now, the unemployment, this is interesting whenever you compare the two of them, the employed to unemployed, because we were well below where we were at the year before. This is basically because it was a tight labor market for employers due to the rise in job creation. So there's so many jobs out there and the labor pool was getting very small. So it's a good problem to have, It also ends up attracting more talent to our area because of this. But from March to April, unemployment jumped from 2,332 to 10,947. Now, year to year, the jump of it was a jump of 8,000 from 3,000 up to about 10,000. Now, the interesting thing that I talked about before is that the unemployment actually went down for March, even though the employment went down too. That's rare. Normally, if you go unemployed, then you go unemployment. There's a couple of different things that could have caused this, the employee loss and the unemployment loss. Could have been the college students leaving the area, and maybe they did not claim unemployment whenever they left. But it also could be the delay in an unemployment processing. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but for it to drop down and not have this bump here, then have a huge spike, it could be either or. Now, the labor force is whenever you combine the two, unemployment and employment, and it showed a steady decline starting in March, just leading us down, and overall 12,000 compared to last year. Now, like we said with the formula, we divide the unemployment by the labor force to get the rate. And in the beginning, Q1, everything looked good for us as usual. We're normally hover near the bottom, we always have, and ended up at a 2.6, which is one of the lowest that we've ever had. And then COVID hit, and it just jumped off the board. Bad news, we jumped, but remain near the bottom still compared to the surrounding metros. So we're still towards the bottom. The good news though, the state's data is actually released before the metros version. And so the state is heading down, which leads me to believe that our numbers will head down as well when it comes to May. And if I would have timed this right, the numbers actually get released today at noon. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, we will have new numbers to talk about that reflect what I'm saying, that these numbers hopefully will drop. So we'll pay attention to that in the background, and maybe by the time we have our questions, we can get some updated information for you. And then maybe next year we'll start scheduling these meetings after data is released, so we're not caught in the middle. The next number that that's near and dear to my heart is the current employment statistics, because this is the actual number of jobs in the area. So this measures the people that live and work here, that for the jobs for them, but also people that work here regardless of where they live. So at CES, the filled jobs themselves, again, everything was looking great, just following the same trend as last year, even the ups and downs, for January, February, March, Q1 compared to last year. But then from March 2020 to April, unemployment dropped 8,000. So it went from about 90,800 down to 82,600, which is a year-to-year drop of 12,000 jobs. Now, at this point, I've created what I'm assuming is the worst BN by the numbers report to date. I remember going through these numbers and being like, how in the world are we going to find the silver lining in any of this? But the good news about the CES data is that you can actually break this down by industry. So we can find out where we need to target and follow up with people, but then also see where we are compared to everybody else in the state with this overall decline. So the first industry that we took a look at was the transportation, warehouse, and utilities. This is a super sector, so it's combining 3 different categories, but it's a way for the state to put them all together and track everything. So what we've done is take a look at the decline from COVID from March to April, and then did it by percentage to be able to compare all of our surrounding communities. Not all of them, but it's like the 12 MSAs. So the top 12 MSAs are what we have for all of our industries to find out where we actually compare to everyone else, and trying to find out where we got hit the hardest. So Elgin actually lost 700 jobs, which is about 10% of their jobs, from 6,800 down to 6,100. Now we tied for 8th with no losses in this sector, and we're holding steady at about 2,700. Champaign actually gained 100 jobs, and there's some of these where we've done the same. We've also included the Illinois average just to see how far below that we are, but we're below on that one. Education and health services, these are activities that a combination, another super sector of education and healthcare and social assistance all into one. You can see Elgin took the hardest hit. They lost about 14% by losing 4,800 jobs. We ranked 7th. We lost 900 jobs. So we dropped from 11,300 down to 10,400, but still below the overall average of Illinois. Now, the retail trade, this is one that you can definitely tell areas that have more retail had a bigger hit. Lake County had the biggest one with 14% job loss. They lost 6,800 jobs. We ranked 5th. We lost about 1,000 jobs, or 11%, but still below the Illinois average. Information side, this is not a large sector for where we're at. We were tied for 7th with everybody else down here, and we just were held on basically to the 500 jobs, well below the Illinois average. Lake County took the biggest hits. They lost 600 jobs, which was about 17% of their employment in the industry sector. Now, professional and business services, this is a super sector as well that combines 3 different sectors. It's professional, scientific, and tech combined with management companies and enterprise activities, along with administrative and support and waste management. It's a strange combo. This is our worst ranking of all of them, and the loss that we suffered here was about 1,100 jobs. We dropped from 9,000 down to 7,900. We're gonna have to dig deeper into this as more information has come out to try to track down the companies that we have in our databases that this could have been affected by to follow up. Wholesale trade, Peoria led this one with 18.5% job loss, which was about 1,200 jobs for them. We tied for 8th, down at the bottom, no change, holding at about 2,100 jobs, well below Illinois average. Mining and construction, Decatur took this one the hardest, and it was a loss of 600 jobs, or about 20%. And we tied, again, 9th, well below the Illinois average, and still holding on to about 2,500 jobs. Manufacturing, Springfield led this one with a decline at 27%. They lost 900 jobs. We are, again, well below. We ranked 12th. We lost only 100 jobs, or about 2.8%. We dropped from 3,600 to 3,500 jobs in the manufacturing sector. Financial activities, leave it to our largest sector to actually gain 200 jobs during this pandemic. But Kankakee really took the largest hit here. I believe they lost 40%. It was actually about 600 jobs, but we're well below the average actually because we gained. Now, leisure and hospitality, this, as you can see, it's off the charts. So the bulk of everyone's losses all across the state fall into these categories. Leisure and hospitality is another super sector that combines arts, entertainment, and recreation with accommodation and food services. Most of you probably knew that coming in, that small businesses, mom and pops, are the ones that really were affected by the stay-at-home order. Decatur had the biggest loss with 3,500 jobs. It was actually 77%, dropping from 4,500 all the way down to 1,000 in the leisure and hospitality. We ranked 8th, losing 4,100 jobs, about 41%, from 10,000 jobs down to 5,900 jobs. It's still below the Illinois average, but leisure and hospitality was by far the largest one. So when we look at the total public and private on where we stand job loss wise compared to every other metro in the state, we rank 10th. Like we said earlier, we lost 8,200 jobs, 9%, from 90,800 down to 82,600. Things could definitely be better, but as you can see, they could be a lot worse. Some of the things that we can do with this data, we can combine it with the wage information, because there's wage information out there as well for each industry, and we can do that to create models to project an overall economic impact. What I'll say about the models, we keep a lot of those in-house just because all models are wrong. Some are useful, but we can use that, and we considered it when we were going to prioritize our outreach, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So next up, we've got the retail sales trends, and we do that based off of a countywide sales tax in McLean County. Since we know what the employment is, we need to find out how that translates to local spending. So countywide sales tax distribution was on par, for the last first quarter, same as the last 3 years. Big spike in January, as usual, thanks to all those Christmas gift cards and anyone returning purchases. Everything stays about the same, and then we normally get a big spike whenever people get their tax returns. However, you can see that things stayed pretty flat. Now, this could be a combination of shifting from the sit-down restaurants to drive-ups, small retailers shifting to larger retailers, and then also the ease of online shopping, which we don't collect any of that. There's also another shift that I've noticed just driving around town, and that's the increase in hardware store sales. I don't have those numbers, but based on the parking lots, you can tell that a lot of people are tackling home projects while they are working remotely. This would be interesting to compare to surrounding communities, but this data is not as easily to collect as some of the other data, which is already packaged for us. Now, the investment side of things, econ dev is all about the retention, expansion, and attraction of jobs. And so for us, investment is an easy way, it's easy to measure, but it also leads to jobs. So we track investment by turning to our building permits. And so this is for all of McLean County. Commercial permit wise, you can see that we're actually down compared to last year at this time with 72, where we ended up at 208 last year in the overall count. However, what we lacked in the quantity, we made up with in quality. We've got some major projects going on. I'm projecting we're going to exceed last year's investment, and those job numbers will be great to report in our annual report to show what's on the horizon. I can say from the projects that are in the pipeline, speaking with developers, just even nationwide developers, it's not slowing down development at all. Everyone understands that this is taking place all over the world. But the projects that we've been working on, it hasn't stopped them. So that's good news going forward for the construction industries, but also for our community. Next, we're going to talk about how we reacted. We talked about COVID's impact on our numbers, and now we're going to say how our leaders reacted to what was going on. Last time we spoke was actually last year, and we were gearing up for our One Voice trip. We were planning a workforce resource study, and then also a strategic plan. One Voice barely made it, and then everything else got pushed. So we always joke that we're slowly getting where we wanted to go, but this is not the plan that we had in mind at all, which I'm assuming happening to everybody. So we're going to go through our reactions based off of a typical problem-solving model, where we're going to look at assessing a situation, what solutions are available, and then how we implemented them. There's a lot to take in the beginning. I mean, information was changing daily. What we have following this are strategies that are part of a recovery plan that the EDC created early in the pandemic. Actually, now this recovery plan and these slides will be available upon request. So when this is done, we'll have Nick follow up with our attendees later with a survey. And if you want a copy of either the slides themselves, like I said, we'll have a video later on, but also our recovery plan, we'll send you a copy of that as well. So the first strategy that we put in was just the business impact research. DCO reached out and said, hey, we need to hear from businesses immediately to find out who is impacted by this so that they could declare the state as a disaster area in order to access federal funding. So it's something that we partnered with our other community partners and pushing out on social media. The numbers were, across the board, across the state, in line with what everybody thought, and we got declared a disaster area. After that, we started creating some models to try to predict what the overall impact was. Early models I created scared the mess out of me. It was something that we use InPlan for. This is a system that also ISU uses, so it's good to compare notes. This one, we ran through, like I said, we had the numbers, we knew who was going to get hit the hardest, and we decided to try to prioritize our outreach based off of that later on, but still kept everything in-house and didn't really tell a lot of people that we had it because we didn't want to scare everybody, because that could in turn affect consumer confidence. After that, it was just finding the tools. It's like anything else in economic development. We need to know what's out there for our local businesses, and it was changing week to week. Some of these things would get approved before the guidelines were out. We participated in multiple webinars, attended a ton of conference calls. Our regional partners were phenomenal in this. I'd say almost every other day we were contacting someone in Champaign, Peoria, Decatur, just finding out what they had heard and what their best practices were going to be going forward. But then also working with our Chamber of Commerce and the CVB. And it got to the point where we had started collecting so many of these tools that we had to have a place to store them. And speaking of tools, 2 more actually came out this week. So one big takeaway, and this is a key right here, this business interruption grant program just came out. As you can see, they put $20 million for businesses that are located in subset DIAs. Actually, there's one in Bloomington. So follow up with us if you want more information about that, but they're going to provide 1,000 grants at $20,000 a piece for anyone that had any significant property damage. But then also any bar and restaurant can get $20,000. They have 1,000 grants for that. Barbershops and salons will have 1,000 grants of 10,000 each. And then gyms and fitness centers, they've allocated $10 million to do 500 grants, 20,000 each. So if anyone needs any more information on this, follow up with us. We'll send you the links to get to the applications, but just another tool that had just came out. And then another tool that came out was the Rebuild Distressed Communities program. I don't want to go too much into this, but both these tools are available. Again, application deadlines really quick. So some of these come out, they just started taking the applications, but they just got announced. So after we had gone through the overall, assessment of what's going on, we had to come up with solutions. And like we said, we had found all these tools, but didn't really have a good way to share it. So we partnered with the Chamber and our Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we built a web portal. And that's how bnprepared.org was born. And this was a great resource, received a lot of great feedback from it. It changed ongoing, still does today, to keep everything in one spot. So whenever we got phone calls, emails, we can just direct everybody here. Ended up being a pretty good tool for our community. After we created that though, we had one of our board members at the EDC, actually Neil Finland, who had suggested creating a cookbook style guide that would walk people through the process for some of these programs. It was also a great tool for us because if we did get a phone call and we knew it was a business and what they needed, we could send them this guide in general. And after that, we created the business guide. We actually ended up getting a request to do one from another EDC board member, Ryan Gemelgard, suggested we do one for residents. So we created a resident guide as well. Both guides were very well received and we've sent quite a bit of those out. After that, we decided that maybe we needed to get something locally because there was a lot of other tools out there from the state and the feds. During this time, there was also a big hang up with PPP. Like, I don't know how many rounds we've gone through with these state and federal programs that the funding would run out really fast and then the funding would come back. And so we ended up working really closely with Chairman McIntyre, County Administrator Camille Rodriguez, our Community Development Corporation Board, and then many local financial institutions, just to find out what was working on their end and then what we could do locally to try to come in and catch everybody who might have fell through. What we ended up doing is we generated a lot of interest for the loans that we were created. We ended up converting the revolving loan fund into 2 recovery loans. A lot of people were interested, but then as soon as the Paycheck Protection Program got refunded and other grants became available, our loans took a back seat to the grants, which makes sense because why would you take out a loan if you've got grants available? And that's actually what they were designed to do. We do feel, however, talking to some financial institutions, that these will pick back up whenever the Paycheck Protection Program comes to a close, which I believe is at the end of this month. So, I mean, once those programs are done and the grants are out, we still have our funding set to help out anybody going forward. So then after we had created the programs, we had to get the word out. So we ended up doing virtual BRE visits, and luckily we partnered with our EDC board members, community volunteers, and the Chamber of Commerce. And we tried to call every business that we had contacts for in McLean County. It was a very well organized effort to make that reach out. But the goal was to find out, one, how the businesses are doing, if they're open or closed, make them aware of all the resources that we just talked about. You know, we did not get a survey from every business, but we wanted to make sure that they knew about our guides, that they knew about being prepared, that they knew that there were tools available. And then also we wanted to check on the employment levels to see where there could be layoffs coming. So later on, we can design workforce programs around that. After we did that, we had to assess the feedback. Like I said, spoke to multiple financial institutions to find out what was working. And one thing I know that everybody made a big push to thank our first responders, which is phenomenal. But talking to a lot of the financial institutions, the hours that our local bankers were working was impressive. I mean, the amount of loans, trying to keep up with all the different regulations that were coming through, they were putting in some serious hours. So any bankers on the line, just give a shout out to you guys for all your hard work during that. But one thing though, whenever we got this, we realized that we needed to get actually more feedback. So we're going to follow up with another survey following that. The next thing that we talked about was trying to get the word out. So we wanted to do it being by the numbers. Here we are. Besides that though, we spoke at multiple Bloomington-Normal and McLean County board meetings. We did chamber chats and a lot of other webinars as well to try to spread the word. Now we come to the part where we're trying to look beyond where we're at now, like what's coming next. and quoted Bruce Lee on this. I don't know if anybody saw the documentary. It was pretty good, but I think that's going to be the mindset because everyone's probably going to get tired of hearing the new normal, but nobody knows what the new normal is yet. So at this point, we just need to be following best practices, seeing what's out there, and following the same steps. We need to take a look back and reflect on what worked and what didn't work, assess the situation, and then going forward, come up with solutions, which will probably be in the form of a strategic plan. So the reflection side, looking back, just looking with the chamber, the CVB, the city, the town, the county, and our regional partners, just trying to find out what worked, what didn't work over the last 3 months, what we can improve on, so that next time we'll have a better idea on how to handle a situation like this. So for this section, we're going to talk about some of the survey results that we did. I'm trying to find out where businesses were. Operating wise, out of the survey, we ended up surveying, I think, 105 businesses completed the survey. 83% of the businesses that we surveyed are open, but they're operating at 66% on site. They were able to receive their supplies, so 88%. I have heard personal stories where that has, it's changed since then for sure. In the beginning, people could, but now it's getting much tighter on the supply side, which is increasing demand. And then also able to ship and deliver was at 82. 14% of the businesses closed voluntarily, and an 86% that closed were forced to close. Financially, 72% of the businesses experienced a decrease in revenue. Only 55%, though, shockingly, had a line of credit with the bank, and only 44% of the businesses contacted a bank. But out of those businesses, 100% of them applied for the PPP loan, which is by far the best program that we've seen out there. Good news, though, on average, the businesses said that they could sustain average 13 weeks what they currently have. I would say, though, going through them industry by industry, this was also one where mom and pops got hit a lot harder than corporations or even franchises, just because some of them had more backing from a larger level. This is also something that we can make available, the survey results that we'll have upon request. The people that participated in the survey were actually breaking this information down by industry so they can know what their industry was compared to the overall results. Workforce-wise was also a big question for us because we wanted to know, as people are getting laid off, where other opportunities were. So 43% of the businesses had employment changes. Out of that, 29% laid off their employees. Morale was actually at 71%. And then the big thing going forward, though, was planning within 3 months, were there be layoffs going forward. So you can see for the most part, it was 62% no, 20 didn't know, 18 thought that they would. And looking further out, it was 52% no, 36 were unsure, and 12. Looking at the comments, though, on a lot of these, it was just the uncertainty. I mean, at this time when we did this over the past couple of months, nobody knew, because nobody knew when phase 3 was going to hit, when phase 4 was going to hit, when we could start opening back up. And just like anything else in economic development, we just need to know what the plan is, because uncertainty kills more deals and more investment than anything else I've ever seen. So assessments, where are we going beyond COVID? What are some of the trends that we're seeing? We've got these into 3 areas that we think are being hit the hardest, could have the biggest impact. One of them is just retail. Like, what is the new normal of retail going forward? If you got the ability to buy from home, are you going to need as much retail space? And talking to some consultants and different experts in the area, it's even whenever this started picking up before with Amazon taking off, it really came down to experience. It came down to who the customers were, but then it also came down to the product itself. Like, there's just certain things that you and I are not going to buy online. So going forward, it's all going to be based off of experience. I mean, you still need to get out. I think you're starting to see that now as we open back up. People are tired of being at home. They want to have that experience, and there's certain things you just can't experience from a website. Higher education. This is big for our community. Big question. I'm no way an expert in this at all. This is going to take a lot more research, but it's going to have a major impact whenever we're talking about 24,000 students in this area. I mean, that's huge for us as a major employer as well. So we need to find out, what trends are going to go forward. But at the end of the day, it's almost like retail. It's still going to come down to that generation coming in. They want the experience. the culture itself, and then also though their academic concentration. Like there's certain things you probably could learn online, like coding, but there's other things that you need that relationship. You need to have the teachers there and be around your fellow students to get that full experience. So again, culture would be huge going forward in this one. And then the other one that we just sat through another webinar on the other day was office space. Huge concern for us because we have a lot of office workers. And now, can you do the same work from home? You know, will you need the same amount of office space as you do now? And from what we learned, back again to culture, like it really depends on the company itself. There are people that can work from home, but some of the studies that we've seen, I can't remember the name of it, but if anybody's interested, I can follow up with the link for the one we had yesterday. It was fascinating that there were the younger generations needed to be back at the office. They just have to have that relationship. It was very important to them. But then it also broke down the overall occupations. Some occupations were better suited and could work from home, where other ones, such as sales and marketing, really needed to be at the office. So it really depends on what industry you're in, what the culture is, and then also the generation ahead on whether the office space will be needed. Now, the common key out of all this, out of all three of those that we've seen going forward on what the new normal is, it's going to come down to experience. You know, what's the experience? What's your quality of place? And what's your culture? Now, I was thinking through all these numbers and what we're going to do going forward, and all three of these, in my opinion, is what Bloomington-Normal is. Like, you can have a great experience here. We've got an awesome quality of place, and we've got the culture. So it's not just us noticing this, because we were recently ranked as the 11th most livable small city in America by Smart Asset last week. But then outside of that one, we were ranked 4th in the nation to live in post-COVID. So these two combined follows that same message, which leads me to believe that there's opportunity, that even if people are going to start working from home more, why would you need to live in a major metro and pay double the cost whenever you can be living in central Illinois and we can start becoming the suburbs to the major metros? So I think we've got an opportunity here on a couple of different fronts. Solution-wise for this as we start going forward, one, we got to get back on the strategic plan. This was all lined up and ready to go before COVID hit, so we're going to hit this again. The goal with this, as we talked about last time, was taking all the work everybody did with the BN Advantage strategic plan and converting it into a prioritized system. And for me, that really is going to start with workforce. And we're launching the workforce resource mapping, and it's going to happen in probably about an hour. Actually, we've got it scheduled to start again. For us, as we discussed earlier, when it came to that unemployment rate and how tight that labor market was going to be, workforce is going to win economic development. So we need to make sure that we understand what tools that we have right now available for our workers, but also for our businesses. And then we need to find out what the businesses' needs are when it comes to the workforce. So going forward, we can help out our universities, we can help out Heartland, the high schools, everyone understand what we need to do to get people in the pipeline. But then also, we're probably going to take a look at upskilling, and then also the attraction side. We're bringing some different occupations in that we might not have enough of or have time to train. So with all that, you know, how you guys can help, all these are going to have some kind of homework for you before we get to questions. Number one, call Becky to help boost that consumer confidence. That community campaign is wonderful. We've even heard from some businesses that we have here in town that they're only going to lunch in places that are community confident. We do have some of these stickers here at the office. If you want to get more information on it, go check out the website, community-confident.com. Workforce-wise, definitely give Amber a call. We need to get out there as soon as we can. Phase 4 opens up on Friday. We want to tour your facilities. We want to find out what your needs are. One, think if you're doing business here, see if you're in growth mode, and if not, what barriers are in the way, so we can start working on incentives and legislations to make it easier to do business here in Bloomington-Normal. Also, if you guys have any property available, if you know of any kind of development projects going on, get a hold of Nick. We want to make sure that we have all of our available sites and buildings inside of our site selection system. We're still getting a lot of requests. Like I said, in the development world, projects are moving forward. So we need to have your sites and buildings inside of our system. Otherwise, we're missing out on opportunities to land some of these projects. Also, at any time, if you guys want to discuss the strategy going forward, give me a call. Go out anytime and discuss what we're going to be doing next step-wise, and any input. We're always looking for best practices. And with that, I will check for questions. See if we've got any on here. Where is the system? Meeting controls. Oh, and Nick just gave me the press release that just came out for our unemployment numbers. And let's see here, what do we got? Bloomington, it's at 10.9. So I think we were at 12 is what we talked about earlier on. So now it's on 10.9. Yep, we are going down. All right, so we got our first question that came in. Are you hearing that local government is helping or hindering the recovery? Interesting question. I don't think I've heard either way, whether it's helping or hurting the local recovery. If anything, I would want to say that it's helping the local recovery because we're following the best practices. Now, also knowing from some of the comments that we received on the BRE survey that we sent out, the disaster one, that there was a lot of concern about, any of the regulations that were coming through, any of the closing, the stay-at-home orders, and what it was going to do to the economy. And us at the EDC, we were on the fence on the whole thing. There was different stories that were out there. The information was all over the place as far as, what was real, what was not real. And now there's even more information coming out now that some of the states that actually opened up early are spiking again. So for us, our statement has always been that I know that this is going to be hard. I mean, this is going to be a fight going forward while we're working through this, but it could be far, far worse if it would spread faster. And we're not health experts, so we don't know. But as far as local, I think that everyone's been doing the best that they can do. As I said during the reflect portion, we're going to go back and take a look, and we'll do follow-up surveys and see what we could have done better across the board for our entire county and the state. We also work with our regional partners because we want to make sure that anything like this comes back around, that we can be ready next time. More ready, I would say. All right, so I will answer live on that one. Are businesses desiring a ramp up in testing to drive consumer confidence? I have not heard that one either, on if the testing would help boost the consumer confidence. Right now, we're really pushing for following best practices. Me, for one, taking the wife and kids out, I'm only going to places where I see people have their masks on when they're supposed to have their masks on. If I hear anybody coughing, which we've always done before, we'd be at a sporting event, volleyball game, and someone coughs, we move down a couple seats in the bleachers. You just don't want to be anywhere around that. But as far as more testing goes, yeah, I would assume that the more testing, the better, because the more that we can prove that we do not have it, the faster we can get back to normal, whatever that will be. Kind of danced around that one, but probably have to do some more research on that. All right, not seeing any other questions. If you have any, yeah, use the question box or chat. And then if not, like I said, our next meeting, I believe it's at 1 o'clock. We're going to be doing our workforce resource mapping. Looking forward to get that completed and having that available for download so everybody can see what tools are available in the workforce arena. Also, like I said, we'll take this recorded video, we'll launch it, put it online. And if you guys have any other questions, please follow up with us. Any suggestions, always open to feedback. And like I said, in many things before, economic development is a team sport. We're all in this together. So the more that we can give back, oh, hold on, more things. Okay, a couple of them. Are you hearing more employers offering work from home on a permanent basis? Answer live on that one. Yes, we are. It really depends on the industry. So again, going back to what the occupation is and the industry itself, I think if people are starting to find, and the generation really determines on if they're effective or not. But I think that it's going to be a perk. It depends on the industry itself. If they are effective and they can work from home, those are some of the ones that we would start targeting in our marketing attraction campaigns. Whenever we're looking, like one of the things we're doing right now is massive undertaking, big data, ripped a lot of the information on businesses that are north of I-80. And we took their employee count and we actually divided the square footage by employee count to find out who's running out of space, because, us being ranked 4th in the nation right now, that's a good opportunity to start recruiting. So if they are going to work from home, that's where the people that we want to go after to try to recruit them down here, because what a better place to live and cut your cost of living in half and still have wonderful amenities. But yes, we are hearing it, but again, it depends on the industry and would it be permanent or not. Yeah. All right, I think that's it. If anybody has any follow-up questions, like I said, hit us up on the email, give us a call anytime. We'll set something up. Love to get out there, see your businesses. We got more coming in on the chat side of things. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to stop this now so we can get prepared for our workforce resource mapping project. And hopefully we'll have more reports to share with you guys soon. Thanks for attending.